Hey, welcome back. Nice to see you again. So, for this week's lesson, we're going to be discussing something that's pretty common amongst a lot of us, and that is anxiety. Now, for some people, they experience much more extreme, situations of anxiety, right? Anxiety disorders, right? And panic attacks. Um, and while there are definitely, physiological underpinnings of anxiety, this is really about coping with mental thoughts because for a lot of people, it's mostly an inability to cope with life stressors. And not to say that, these things are mutually exclusive, they can both happen concurrently, right? Biochemical issues and mental thoughts. But we're going to focus only on really trying to cope with our mental thoughts and how to mitigate anxiety in that manner because it's a really common issue, and that's why we're doing this video. So you're going to have an actionable plan to use when you're facing stressful, anxious situations. All right, so let's preface by saying that, look, we all encounter challenges in life, right? And we overcome one situation and then another one surfaces, another one, you overcome another and then another one surfaces, and so forth. And so anxious thoughts, is really just often a reaction to these challenges, right? But anxiety, as I always say, is a condition of the mind, right? It's a feeling much like anger, sadness, disheartenment, right? Misery, whatever. And we need to learn that acceptance of our current state is our freedom from it, right? It allows us for positive change to happen. And when we embrace anxiety, we hold it in our hand, right? We don't need to pretend we like it, but if we just embrace it, we just want to say yes to the anxiety. I see you, instead of throwing it away or running away from it, right? The solution to curing anxiety and preventing it in the future lies within the response and the interpretation of the in the moment anxiety, right? Again, it comes back to your response and interpretation of the anxiety. All right. So if we see an obstacle or a challenge, right, we may have a sense of worry, which prompts the stress response, right? Your adrenaline goes up and you have those sort of like physical symptoms, right? An anxious, increased heart rate, tightness of the throat, maybe loose bowels, headaches, tremors. And then you obviously brew more negative thoughts like impending doom or fear, sadness. Similarly, we may also have, what I call cognitive distortions or irrational thoughts, right? Things, for example, you might say like, I'm worthless because I'm not in shape like everyone else I see, or I can't be happy until I lose weight. These are irrational thoughts, really. And this creates anxiety, of course, and reinforces self-defeating behaviors and negative self-talk, right? Behaviors that reinforce these patterns and these thoughts, right? You might just start binging or eating carelessly because you just, it's a way to cope with the anxiety, right? Things that really just do nothing to support your goals, and really just to lose these sort of negative thoughts. So anxiety can stem from something happening right this moment, that comes and passes, right? Or something from an occurrence in the future that we believe might happen, right? But of course it hasn't happened yet. So I kind of like to divide this like I had anxiety into short term and long term, and really they're kind of one and the same. But this dichotomy kind of makes it a little bit more clear because I think for a lot of people we have anxiety like really in the moment, like in the next 5 seconds, or something that happens like 8 weeks from now. So in the moment, current anxiety, like say we miss the train to go to work. In that very moment, we have two options to choose from. We can view the challenge as an emergency, like this is awful, shit, like now what? And subsequently have anxious thoughts about the future, about getting in trouble, or getting fired, disappointing your colleagues, whatever, coworkers. Or we can view the challenge as an opportunity to grow. well, I could have arrived early at the train station. I could have booked my ticket in advance, right? Those sort of things. In some cases, there's nothing you can do. It was just out of your control. So you must only reject the situation as an emergency, right? So you have to answer these two questions. Is it really an emergency? Which chances are it's not. And that's what's really important. That's why you got to ask yourself that question. Secondly, is there an opportunity to grow from this situation? Not always. There isn't always an opportunity, but you have to ask yourself truthfully that question. So if you knew that you could have arrived to the train station earlier, then there's an opportunity for growth. But if the train broke down, and you realize nothing you can do about it, then, it's really out of your control, right? So there's that. And then there's future anxiety, as I call it, where, long-term anxiety, which is not helpful at all. So if really you're unsure about something, or you're scared about what the doctor will say about your lab results that you're not going to get for another 10 weeks, do you really want to be anxious every single day, worried for 10 weeks straight? That's not helpful or healthy at all, right? You're living in the stress response day in and day out. So again, we can view the situation as an emergency, which isn't helpful because, again, we can't predict the future. We can only control right now, the present moment, right? So whether it's current anxiety or anxiety about a far future event, we want to use this sequence that I'm going to outline for you right here. So really, again, first ask yourself these questions. Is this an emergency? And is this an opportunity for growth? Can I learn from this? All right, so write that down. And honestly answer it, okay? You're only lying to yourself if you don't answer it truthfully. So the goal here is to be rational and say, no, it's not really an emergency, right? There's a lot of more important things in life. This is really trivial. It's not a big deal. But what can I learn from this? Is there anything? So have curiosity, have an open mind to it. And secondly, if you find yourself caught in a panic attack, not everybody's going to experience a panic attack, but for some people it's very debilitating, or you're constantly stuck in emergency mode, I want you to follow this 4-step response here. It's called it's called the lost and dare response. I like to combine these two things together. So first say, I'm lost in my thoughts, right? You're having a lot of things going on in your head, but say to yourself, I'm lost in my thoughts, and that's okay, right? Say to yourself, so what if I'm anxious? It's not a big deal. I have anxious thoughts and symptoms, but by saying that, you're dismantling the fear and the tension, and it makes the anxiety less of a threat. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We want to diffuse the anxiety, all right? So you can write that down, diffuse and lost, okay? Secondly, in step 2, we want to accept it, okay? And we want to offer kindness to it. So acceptance and offer kindness. So really what that means is we don't want to fear the anxiety. We want to welcome it in, because that's a phrase goes, what we resist persists. So we want to say, I accept and allow this anxious feeling, the heart racing, the tension, the sore throat tension, the nervous arousal, all right? Again, acceptance is what we want. And then thirdly, we want to smile at the anxiety. Really just have kind of a playful attitude with it and say, it's okay, this is anxiety. This can work with anything. This is frustration, this is sadness, this is, disappointment, whatever. But here it's anxiety. You kind of want to look at it and say, it's anxiety, and smile towards it. And you want to embrace it, you want to run towards it. So run and smile is the third step. So say to yourself, I'm excited by this feeling. I have a new perspective towards your bodily sensations and anxious feelings. Okay? And then lastly, step 4 is to take a deep breath. And by that I mean inhaling through the nose for 5 seconds and exhaling for about 7 or 8 through the mouth. So we want to inflate your diaphragm, your belly, and deflate it. Right? Don't chest breathe. Breathe from the belly. So take a deep breath and engage. That's the last acronym, or part of the acronym. So what you're doing is you're allowing the anxiety to be there, right? It's just like that creepy guy in line at the grocery store that's looking over your shoulder, looking at your phone, whatever. You're not pushing him away. You're not saying anything to him. You're just like kind of letting it be. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but you're accepting it and letting it be there. So it's the same thing with anxiety. You're allowing the anxiety to be present, but you still need to continue to carry on. You still need to go check out at the cashier. So you're not going to let it interfere with your living, you living your life. That's the point. You don't want to let anxiety paralyze you. So occupy yourself with the activity or whatever it is that you are doing currently, and engage your mind back, and that takes up your full attention. Engage your mind back into the activity that's taking up your attention. All right. So physical activity is honestly the best tactic. So because it really gets you out of your head, and you can do like push-ups, jumping jacks, burpees, whatever, just something for a minute or two. Or just going to the gym and doing a full workout. That works too as well. But don't do passive activities like watching TV, reading. Don't be idle. That's really what you don't want to do, because that allows you to be, that gives you more accessibility to ruminating and getting stuck in your thoughts. All right. So that's the actionable plan there, right? Diffuse, recognize that you're lost, accept, offer kindness. That's step 2. 3 is run towards the anxiety, right? And smile at it. And lastly, take a deep breath and engage with it. So you have dare and lost, right? So that's it. So hopefully, this will be of really good use to you and help you out next time you have any sort of panic attack or anxious thoughts. Now listen, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, you're not going to just like suddenly remove your anxiety, the second you start using this strategy. But over time, when you repeat it and do it over and over again, it'll become embedded in your head, and you'll see that, as you learn to accept anxiety in these sort of stressful situations, you don't end up having so much of these anxious situations anymore. Like, you learn to accept and deal with stress situations like relationships, jobs, your occupation, right, finances, being stuck in traffic, or or being in a line to the grocery store for 10 minutes, or they don't have your favorite shoes, or whatever. I mean, you learn to cope with those things better, so you don't get stressed or anxious about those things. And that's really the point. So for now, the goal here is to embrace anxiety, but the long term is to see kind of the trend of anxiety dampen over periods of time. So give it a shot, and if there's any questions at all, let me know, and I hope it helps you out. Thank you so much.